and some guy some brilliant person in a Honda Accord decided to drive.
Yeah.
A nice cop pushed the guy all the way down the block. I got fed up. I went all the way around. And some cop got out of his car and pushed him all the way.
Wow.
Till they got
hoping to be on the cover of the Post or something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Ready to roll? Shouldn't be too long a daf. First part's a little easy. The second part's a shtickle hard. After today, Bez Hashem, it gets easier.
Well, we end the parak today, right?
We end the parak. Where's Parrots?
He's here. I saw him before. I saw him.
He's off.
Well, he started the recording, so.
All right, so he's got to make a l'chaim. He's got to make a l'chaim.
What's up? Yeah, the problem
man, we're finishing the parak.
At 1 o'clock, Tiago. Tiago, who's picking up? Your kid went to the wedding or no?
No, my kid. It was insanity. My kid ain't going to the wedding. Your mice went?
Why? There was a truck. There was a bus.
Yeah, we got to pick them up at 1.
At 1 a.m. I'm not
1 a.m. Sugar. I'm not going to. Hopefully I'll be sober by then.
Well, if you make.
Well, where do you have to pick him up from?
From the young Israel.
Drive better drunk.
He can't walk to your house from the young Israel. He'll be fine.
Who's getting married tonight?
One of the Baines' sons.
Yeah, he told me if he had a scooter, he wouldn't bother me.
I hear. I think the scooter needs chains on it. I don't think it will work.
Oh, it needs a smartphone, and I won't get him one.
I'm surprised that he went.
He loves this stuff.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, I guess my mush doesn't like this stuff. So.
Where's the wedding at?
The Warriors are playing at 10 o'clock. My mush is home. That's all.
They're going with a coach bus, Tiago, because they got the PPP.
Very good, thanks.
No, that's what Mark told me.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, okay.
What's all this for?
Yes, Reb Zev. What did Darche do? They kept it for themselves, or they passed it on to the kids?
You also got the PPP, guys. Don't relax.
Reb Zev, you see?
He's got more PPP than anybody else in the country.
Reb Zev, but they give it over to the kids.
I'm sure they do.
They don't keep it for the upper echelons. You know what I mean? They pass it on. Coach Buster.
Just remember,
they also had yeshiva.
The video is recording.
Right. They all had yeshiva as well. Unlike someone else we know.
One second. You got to be fair. Darche High School had yeshiva also. That's a high school.
Oh, there you go. All right. It is what it is. It is what it is. I'm just not sure why tomorrow's any more safe than today. I don't see any difference in the snow.
It's all about the busing. It's all about
I'll tell you what's more safe. The mothers will kill the Rabbi Bender.
I still don't understand why they can't tell you the morning of like they used to do with the phone relays. Now they cancel it a day before.
Oh, Landau. The Taurus you're dealing with, Landau.
You know what I'm saying? I remember 8 o'clock in the morning, everybody was calling the next person to call the next person. Now you can send one text and everybody knows, but we canceled a day earlier.
We knew we weren't getting off. I walked through avalanches uphill.
Both ways. We know you're old.
Barefoot.
Naftali, in Chicago, I remember as a kid, I maybe had one day off ever for snow days.
That's because your school buses have plows on them.
Chicago's different. They know how to clean this. The whole snow in Chicago is different.
We would get a foot of snow. You got it to school.
All right, Montreal, we never had school canceled ever.
100%.
Growing up in public school, the only time we ever had school canceled was in 1996 because there was a blizzard, and that was one day. Public school always had school.
Chicago only closes these days for freezing temperatures. They don't close for snow.
Mordecai, want to help you until she's stuck?
In Montreal, they probably didn't have school when there was no snow. They said, "Wow, look at that! There's no snow. Let's give them a day off."
We don't have snow days here.
Must be too hot.
We get up for the plow days and the harvest.
Very good.
Like, you ever see how the kids
Okay, let's go.
When the cows are grazing for the season, they get off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, where are we starting from?
Shchita shalai loichlav, right? That's what we got up to. 3 lines down from the top.
Yeah, right there. 3 lines down.
Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph.
Aaron, just because Junior Trump is going to be on Hannity doesn't mean we got to rush.
Wow, you really did drink a lot tonight, Perez. Wow, baby.
What's that? Who's up?
Okay. Shachtel shalai loichlav, right? So what we said in the Mishnah, right? We're talking about people that shechted the korban Pesach on Shabbos, whenever Pesach was chayav Shabbos, and it ended up being puzzle. So if it's puzzle, so it's not done for Shabbos. So mainly, if you shecht an animal on Shabbos when you're not supposed to, so you're going to be chayav, right? So the Mishnah went through a few cases of shachtu shalai la'ichlav, right? So if you shechted with people, they're not going to be able to eat it, so you're not allowed. So the korban Pesach's puzzle, right? So if the korban Pesach's puzzle, you chayav Shabbos. But what's the chiddush, right? What's the chiddush that the Mishnah goes through all these cases? I mean, the rule is the rule. If the korban Pesach is puzzle, you have to bring a shaygig, you have to bring a korban chatas because you machal Shabbos. If the korban Pesach is kosher, then you don't have to, right? So why does the Mishnah need all these different cases? The Gemara says pshita, right? If you shechted it for people that can't eat the korban Pesach, either because they're elderly or they're sick, even the hasan pasal hacha chayav. Since over there it's pasal, right? The korban Pesach is pasal, so you're going to be chayav for Shabbos, a chayav chatas. So the Gemara says no. The reason why it's saying that case is from the Tana Seifa Potter, Tana Reisha Chayav. Since in the Seifa it said Potter, meaning when you shecht it for Eichlav and Shalayla Eichlav, meaning you had, let's say you had 10 people on your korban Pesach, 5 were able to eat it, 5 were not able to eat it. So then that's a kosher korban Pesach. So we wanted to say that if you did that, you are Potter from a korban Chatas. So Tana Reisha Chayav. Okay, so then Vahanami Pshita, Shum the Hasam Kosher Hacha Potter. Right? Since over there it's kosher, here it's going to be potter. Right? Meaning the sefer is also pashit. If you shechted la'ichlav and shalai la'ichlav, your korban pesach is kosher. Right? Like we learned in the beginning of the parak. So if that's the case, then you're not chayav v'chata. So what do you need that case for? Ella. So we're going to say no. Ella aidi the tana shachtu shalai l'shmai b'Shabbos. Since it said if you shechted shalai l'shmai on Shabbos, tananami shalai la'ichlav. So it also said shalai la'ichlav. Standing Gemara says, "V'hi gufa lamali," right? And what do you need it for, right? Why do you need to teach shalai l'shmai? So the Gemara says, no, because we had to teach the machlokes, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, whether if you do a mitzvah, like we learned yesterday, whether if you do a mitzvah, you're chayav v'chatas, right? Even though you're doing a mitzvah, Rabbi Eliezer held you're not, Rabbi Yeshua held you are. So therefore, and part of the raya was about whether you shech the korban pesach l'shma and shaloi l'shma. So therefore, you had to teach it. So it comes out that half this mishnah, not half, but a good portion of this mishnah was not necessary to be taught. It was only taught. We taught this because of this because of this, and ultimately because we needed to talk about l'shma to say the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Yeshua. Fine. So Amalei Rav Huna bar Chinan lebrei. Rav Huna bar Chinan said to his son, "Ki asos l'kamei de Rav Zrika." When you're going to go in front of Rav Zrika Bamine, ask him this question. So we need a little bit of hakdama here. We know, and this is actually one of the more overused kulas in Hilchas Shabbos. Everybody thinks kilkel, once you destroy something, you could do that on Shabbos. It's not true. Kilkel on Shabbos is asur. It's just midrabanan, so therefore you're potter. You're potter from any sort of korbanos, right? Meaning people like tear up tissues for no good reason. That's asur. They say, oh, it's kilkel. It's so what? Kilkel is asur, right? It's not. It's potter aval asur, but you're not allowed to do it. So what about if you're mekalkel bechabura, right? So there's a machlokes whether if you do a chabura, right? We had this in Gemara Shabbos. If you do a chabura, meaning you not do a chabura, you make a cut into somebody and you're destroying. So are you chayav for that or not? So according to the Mandamar, it says divrei haimer mekalkel bechabura is potter. So then a shchita, what is shchita? Shchita is a kilkel, right? So according to him, you have to, in order for the shchita that holds, like mekalka b'chabura is potter. So in order to be mechayev you a chatos for shechting an animal on Shabbos, you have to be doing something constructive, not just destructive. Your regular plain old shchita is destructive, right? Unless you're using it to eat the animal. So in our case though, you can't eat the animal because it's no good, right? We're saying that if you shech the korban Pesach, that's not kosher, you're chayav a chatas because you machal Shabbos. But why? You need to do, according to Madamar, it says that kilkul is potter. You have to have done something positive. What positive thing are you gaining from this shchita? Right? So that's what he asked him to ask from Rav Zrika. So yeah.
Is that a coincidence? His name is Rav Zrika.
I hear. Very good. Rav Zrika from the throwing the down. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Anyway, so Ledivri Ha'imir Makalka B'chura Potter, according to the one that says that Kilkul B'chaburas Potter, Shachtu Shalayla Eichlav chayav Matikin. If you shecht it for people that can eat it, you're chayav. But what was the tikkun, right? What were you accomplishing by shechting this animal? It's not a kosher. It's not kosher to eat. It's not kosher for a korban Pesach. So what tikkun did you do? So Gemara says tikkun of alu la yard. No, the takana is that since if it was shechted properly, once it goes up onto the mizbeach, then it can't come down. Meaning, once they bring the fats, the emurim, onto the mizbeach, they're not going to take it back down. And you're at least getting a mitzvah that way. So that's something positive that comes out. Fine. So that's one case. Shachtu v'nimtza balmum. So what was the case in the end of the Mishnah? If you shechted it and you found it to be a balmum, meaning a balmum that you should have seen, right? So chayav. You're chayav. Matikin. What you fix with that? Right? The whole thing is puzzle. So we say tikkun b'dukin shaba'ayin. No, you were masakin it with the dukin shaba'ayin is the, how do you call it?
Cataracts.
There's something wrong with the eye. Cataracts of the eye. Cataracts, right. Right? That's what some say. Right? That's Rashi says. Rashi brings a few psukim that tell you that. Right? And therefore, and it's going called the Rebbe Kiva that says, Im alu la yardu. If it goes up, then it doesn't go down. Right? So therefore, meaning what's the pshat here? Normally, dukin shaba'ayin is a balmum, right? So, but if a bird has it, dukin shaba'ayin, then it's kosher. So what we're saying here is that since if a bird has a dukin shaba'ayin, it's kosher. So therefore, here too, if the animal already went, if you knew it had a problem with its eye, a cataract, you would not be able to put it on the mizbeach. But if it was already put on the mizbeach, and then you realized it, then it doesn't have to come down. So it's kosher, because if it's kosher for birds, it's going to be kosher for animals. So that's, again, basically the same teretz as before, that the tikkun that you're doing is that it has the ability to be brought on the mizbeach if it was brought up there by mistake. Okay, third case. Shachtu v'nimcha treifa b'seiser potter. If you shecht it, and then you find that it's a treifa hidden, it's potter. Ha-begaloi chayav. But if it's begaloi, it's chayav, meaning if it's a treifa that you clearly see it. Let's say there's something really wrong with it that you should have seen. Ma tikkun. Okay, so what was the tikkun here? So tikkun lahaitzim midei nevela. No, there's a tikkun, because by shechting it, at least it's not a nevela. Now, what's the advantage in nevela? Treifa, you can't eat it. The advantage is that nevela makes things tummy, right? A nevela, that's an animal that's not shechted, is matama. So by you shechting it, the tikkun is that at least it's not matama. It doesn't help you eating wise, right? Because eating wise, nevela, treifa, they're all not kosher, but it will at least make it that it's not matama. So therefore, you did accomplish nevela is matama. You touch a nevela, right, but by shechting it, it's not a nevela. It's still a treifa. It's not kosher, but at least there's an advantage.
Nevela is a dead animal. Right?
Nevela is an animal that dies without shchita.
Right. Okay. So then you shecht it after.
You shechted it before? No, it's a treifa now. Right now, you should have been responsible and check the animal before you shechted it on Erev Pesach Shabbos. and you would have seen that it's a treif.
Okay.
But you didn't, so you shechted it. So now you chayav chatas or not. So it's saying, according to Malno, it says it's a kilkul b'chabura is potter. So how could he be chayav? You didn't gain anything. What was the positive thing that came out from shechting this? You can't eat it because it was treif. You can't bring it as a korban pesach because it was treif. So what was there to be gained that you should be chayav? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Gemara is answering, no, you did gain because now that you shechted it, at least it won't be matama anybody.
But it was
because
a treifa first.
Right.
A treif is matama?
No.
Only in the vela.
Correct. So by shechting, let's say you would have just let it die.
Oh,
if you would just let it die, it would end up being a nevela, so it would be matama. By shechting it, you turned it into just a treifa, not a nevela, and then memela, it's not going to be matama anybody. So I mean, these are very small gains, but it's enough of a gain that will be mechayev you to being a chatas. Okay, so maskal Ravina asked the kasha, how the Tanya shoichet chatas b'Shabbos b'chutz lavoy de zara. If somebody, another winner who decided to do three things wrong. Right, he shechted a chatas on Shabbos outside of the Beis HaMikdash, and he shechted it for avodah zarah. So he's chayav ala gimel chatos. He's chayav 3 chatos.
Why would he ever shecht it? Why would he ever shecht it for avodah zarah?
I have no idea. Right, and also we're talking about a guy that did this all b'shaygig too. If it was amazing, he would be chayav 3 karasin, right? But he did it b'shaygig. So.
The church invited him to a barbecue. He wanted to be a good neighbor, and he was going to get the contract.
Yeah, and he didn't know that. And he didn't know it was avodah zarah or something like that.
He was going to get the food contract if he did it. Shmuel David.
Yeah, or he didn't know, and he didn't know it was avodah zarah. So basically, he didn't know that they gave him an animal that was a chatas, which means it has to be shechted in the Beis HaMikdash. He didn't know that it was Shabbos, and he didn't know it was avodah zarah, right? So therefore, he's chayav 3 chatos. Ma tikkun. Okay, but what tikkun did he do? I mean, this animal, it was out. It was kachim b'chutz. It was Shabbos. It's avodah zarah. What could you possibly have gained from this? No, what he did was at least if somebody would now eat this animal, he wouldn't be over on Ever Menachai in addition. Meaning, if somebody would have ripped a limb off of this thing, they'd be over on eating shchita, kachim b'chutz. Be over on avodah zarah, bidding nana from avodah zarah, and Eber Menachai. So at least he shechted it now, and now at least it's not over on Eber Menachai. So that's called an advantage. That's called you did something positive.
That would have worked for the case before also on the treifa, Eber Menachai.
Oh, very good. Naftali's asking a good kasha, right?
So the chatas is that it's an animal they designated for chatas. That's what it means.
Yes. Yeah. Rashi, it's interesting because he says lebnei noyach, right? See, Rashi has an interesting. You would think, okay, a yid would be an extra isser, right? That's what I said the pshat is, but Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says for bnei noyach are going to be gained. Right? Because now if they eat from this animal, they're not going to get killed.
We got to be Yeager's work.
So what?
Bnei noyach are more chumrah.
Well, that's the mikamidi. That's a whole.
It's more chumrah on
yeah. So anyway, but that's that's a pshat. Now I don't know what to do in Naftali's kasha, right? Well, Eber Menachai could have applied to the first few things, to the first few cases too, right? The Gemara first said Dukan Shaba'ayin, right? And Lahaitzi Midei Nevela. The Gemara could have also answered.
So maybe that's why Rashi's saying B'nai Noyach, because there was no gain by a yid to eating a treifa or Eber Menachai. Now he's eating a treifa. No. So what? So good. So what did he get? He's over a lav too. What's the difference?
Right. I mean, you're not adding on a lav is not going to work, but just for a guy.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So it's interesting. According to Rashi, comes out that what is there to gain by this guy's shchita? He's helping a guy. He's helping a guy out. Now he's going to be chayav achatas on Shabbos because he's actually doing a positive with his shchita as opposed to just kill him.
The guy, he's his UPS man. He always brings in the packages for him on Shabbos.
Okay, that's yeah. Okay, I'm saying he's doing a nice thing, but he's being chayav achatas karas b'meizid for his friend the guy. Yeah. Okay, fine. Shachtu v'noida. So the Mishnah says if you shechted it, right, and then you found out that all the people stiffed you, right? Meaning, in order to shech the korban pesach, you have to have a bunch of people that are part of the club, right? And the guy goes to shecht it, and then he finds out everybody backed out. Everybody went with the other guy, right? Yeah. So Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. So he's chayav, right? Right. That's right. The case is that he's chayav. Yeah.
He's chayav, and he's not Yotzei Korban Pesach this year, or he's got to go now to somebody else's chabura at the last second.
L'chayra, he should be I'm sorry, he's potter from chatas. That's what the mishna says. He's potter from the chatas. He's potter from the chatas because he didn't know.
I'm saying it works for him. It works for him.
L'chayra, I would think so. Yeah, he's part of it. No, but I think it could be this. I don't know if he's shechting for his own chabura. It could be shechting it on behalf. No? I'm saying he has to be part of chabura too. But even if he's shechting on behalf, it could be that he would be chayav chatas because he shechted it for nobody. Right? He's machal Shabbos for nobody. Right? Okay, so let's see. Shachta v'noida. So Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav Asham shenitik le reaya. If an asham that they had to go put it into yira actually is starved, right? That's the thing. What's called. You put out. Sometimes you have to put out the animal and wait for it to be trained. So to pasture. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So sometimes you have to put out an animal to pasture. When do you do that? So Rashi says, if the owner dies, let's say he said he's bringing a korban, and then the owner dies. So what do you do with this animal? Right? So, or the owner had a different animal and he got a kapara from that. So what do you do? So you think, okay, so bring it, it's a chatas or an oilam. So okay, so just bring it as an adava. What's the big deal? Give it as a donation. Right, but the problem is that a chatas and asham can't be an adava. So what's the eitzah? Again, somebody decides to bring a chatas or an asham, then he dies, or he realizes that he had a different animal and he brought that animal. So now what do you do with this animal? You can't bring it as an adava. So what do? You put it out to pasture until it gets a mum. Right. So Rav Huna is saying b'shem Rav Asham shenitik l'ray. If this korban Asham went out to pasture, v'shachtu stam, and somebody shechted it stam, kosher la'ayla, it becomes kosher to an ayla. Right, meaning before it got a mum. If it got a mum, obviously it's not kosher. Before it got a mum, but he didn't shecht it any korban, so then it's you can use it as a korban ayla. Right, and you could put it for the, and they're going to use it on the mizbeach to keep the mizbeach going. Alma kasavar loy by akira. Right, we had this yesterday. You see that you don't need an akira, meaning you don't need an official, let's say, proclamation that this korban, this animal, is changing from an asham to an oila. Right, so alma kasavar loy by akira, I mean it happens automatically. So if that's the case, so then even if you didn't put it into pasture, it should be able to just go from an asham to an oila if that's what you want to do. So it says no gzeira la'achar kapara or lufnei kapara. It's a gzeira after kapara because of before kapara. Meaning, people are going to think if you're going to allow without it going out to pasture, people are going to make a mistake, right? Meaning because they're going to say, oh, a person who already got kapara for his korban asham or chatas from a different korban, and they're going to say that you just do whatever you want with it. We're afraid that they're going to, even before the person gets a kapara, the person's, let's say he made himself a korban asham or a chatas. And then they're going to say, hey, you can change from a korban asham or chatas to an oila. What's the big deal? Remember, he did it before without knowing that the reason why it was done before was because he already brought a different korban to be Yaitz's korban. And then they're going to end up saying, oh, so just change it. And they're going to end up changing it even when they're not allowed to. So therefore, you have to wait until it grazes. Once it grazes, then you could change it from a chatas to an oila without making any sort of announcements. So minot taimra, how do you know that you're allowed to do this? The Tanan asham shemesu ba'alov v'shenes chapru ba'alov. If you have a korban asham, right, similar case that we just said, a korban asham that the owner died, or the owner got a kapara, yirad sheyistav. right? You put it out in the pasture until it gets a mum, right? And then v'yimkar, and then I have a brother-in-law who was making fun of everybody that goes to the country. She said in the country, what you do with your kids is yirachi you starve. You know, you go to the country, you let them go out into the fields, and they don't come back till they get a mum. Once they get a mum, then they come back home, right? That's why everybody goes to the country. I don't right? So that's the same thing here. You know, yirachi is stuff, right? But yimkar, and then you sell it. The yiplu damav l'nadava, and then you take the money and then you go to nadava, right? Because you can't take the animal itself and go to nadava because an ashram and an oil, the ashram and the chatos can't become nadava. But what you do is you get the mum, sell it, and then the money goes to nadava. Eliezer Aimer Yamos. Eliezer says no way. You just got to let it die, right? Meaning it's done. There's nothing you can do with it. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer Yimacher, sell it. V'yavi b'damav oila. You bring an oila with it. B'damav in avagufa oila. Why can't you just change it to an oila? No. So they say the gaza lacha kapara atul lefnei kapara. Right? So we're saying the reason you can't just change it to an oila, you have to first sell it and then take that money and get an oila, is because we're afraid that people are going to do this, start selling korban chatas and korban ashrams for an oila, even if there's even if they're not allowed to, even before the person got a kapara. Shashmamina, that's how you see that we're concerned that people may not understand when you're selling this korban. Fine. So Eisvei, Rav Chisda Rav Huna, Shachtu v'noide shemashchu b'alam es yadam. Let's say he shechted it, and then he found out that everybody backed out from his korban. Yeah? So on Amud Beis. But Tani Allah, we learned on that. Yeah? Meaning that we learned a price on this. B'chol ki gavna. What happens with this? So that's what if happened on Shabbos. But let's say it happened during the week. Right? The guy shechts the korban Pesach, then he finds out that he shechted it for nobody. So what's the din? You sarif miyad. What do? You burn that korban immediately. So the Gemara says, now the Gemara is going to ask what's going on here. Again, during the week, our Mishnah is talking about on Shabbos. And our Mishnah is talking about whether if somebody shechts a korban Pesach and nobody knows, and he didn't know that there was nobody behind it, nobody was part of that club for that particular animal. So on Shabbos, he's potter. Right, but what about during the week? So during the week, if that happened, then you burn the korban Pesach right away. So Gemara's going to ask why. If you hold that you need an akira, meaning you have to officially make the korban Pesach into a different type of korban. Hi Pesach, this is a korban Pesach. The kiyum the lesle bailam, and since it's a korban Pesach, it has no owners. Havale psule begufay. That means it has an intrinsic psul. It itself is puzzle. Amtu lahachi. Yisarif miyad. So because anything that's a psul in the guf itself, if there's something puzzle about the actual korban, you burn it right away. But if you say that you don't need an official uprooting of the korban from let's say a korban Pesach to a korban shlamim, so mereisha havale shlamim, right? From the beginning, it's a korban shlamim. Because once you back out from a korban Pesach, what happens? A Pesach is essentially a shlamim, like we said many times. So essentially it was a shlamim. Psulai mishum mais, and why is it puzzle? Mishum davar acher, right? So it's puzzle because of something else, which is the kashacha le acher tamid shel bein arbaim, right? We said the korban Pesach gets shechted after the tamid shel bein arbaim, which is aser. Me'ikaradin, you are not allowed to shecht any other korbanos after the tamid shel bein arbaim. The reason why you shechted this one because you thought it was a korban Pesach. Came out, it wasn't a korban Pesach because the owners backed out, right? They left you high and dry. So what ended up being? You ended up shechting a korban shlamim after the korban tamid. That's not intrinsically nothing. There's nothing wrong with the actual animal itself, right? So again, psula mishum mai. What's the psul for? Mishum davar acher. What's the davar acher? The kashachale acher tamid shabein arbaim, because you shechted this after the tamid shabein arbaim. So then ibertzura bay, you can't burn it. You need to wait for it to, like we said, to get a mum before you could burn it. The Tanya Zakla, if something psul happens in the actual animal, you burn it right away. But if something happens with the blood or with the owner, then it has nothing to do with the animal. There's just something wrong with the blood, being the blood spilled. That's usually the case. It's spilled on the floor before they can sprinkle it on the mizbeach. or something went wrong with the bailam, they either became tameh or they died or whatever it is, then you don't burn it. First, you wait for it for the tzura to change, right? And then you then you burn it. So you can't just burn it straight. Ella, so what's exactly the case? Ella loitem shachtu stam kosher l'shum oila. Don't say that you shechted it stam, it's kosher for the oila. Ella aim shachtu l'shum oila. If you shechted it for an oila, then it's kosher, right? Meaning, which comes out that you had to how you shechted it l'shem oila, not that you shechted it stam. You shechted it l'shem oila means you changed the status. You were akira. You were akira from a asham or a chatas, and you actually put into an oila. So then the Gemara says, if that's the case, akira. So then you're saying that you do need an announcement to change one korban to another. Fine. Right. This we said this a while ago. That the Reb Chia Bar Gamda said that it was nizr kami chabura. It came out from the mouth of the chabura of Amri, and they said, "What's the case? We're going to show you bailam tamei meis, and we're talking about where the owners are tamei meis. Benidche and the Pesach Sheni, and they're going to be pushing off to the Pesach Sheni, right? Hi hu debay akira. That's when you need an akira, because the korban is no longer going to be brought now because they're pushing it to Pesach Sheni. Haba alma loy by akira, but alma you don't need an akira, right? If it's not for Pesach, then it doesn't need akira. Ma'ikala meima. What are you going to say? This here seems to say that you don't need an akira, and we just got finished saying that you do need an akira. So different case. It's talking about where they made the korban Pesach, meaning they were mafresh, meaning they decided that they're bringing this lamb or this sheep as a korban Pesach before chatzos. And then the owners died after chatzos. It's what we call, it was nira, it was roi, it was fitting to be a korban, and then it became nidche, because the owner died. Anything that was at one point able to be a korban and then got pushed off, it can no longer ever become roi for a korban again. And that's why the korban Pesach is burnt right away. Meaning only after it gets nidche, after it's shechted, then it's a problem. Then it's can get pushed off, but not if it was nira v'nidche when it was still alive. So Gemara asks, this is only, we're going in Rav. Rav is the one that discussed this akira business, whether you have to actually uproot the korban or it gets uprooted automatically. But Rav said, Balei Chayim you don't push off Balei Chayim, right? Only after it was shechted does Rav say that it gets nidche, not when it's alive. Okay, so that teretz doesn't work. Elamar Papa, Hamani Rebbe Eliezer, we're going to Rebbe Eliezer. Damer v'chein hashoichet acherim l'shem Pesach pasul. If you shecht other animals l'shem Pesach, it's pasul da'avrei psula beguf, because it's a psul in the guf. So then, and that's why you burn it right away, right again, because Rebbe Eliezer holds that you're not, even though you did a mitzvah, it doesn't help. Rebbe Eliezer he chatas nami chayav, but if it's Rebbe Eliezer, you should be chayav chatas too. The whole leslie Rebbe Eliezer toib devar mitzvah potter. Rebbe Eliezer doesn't hold of toiv devar mitzvah yapater. Rebbe Eliezer holds if you make a mistake in a devar mitzvah you're chayiv. So in this case, if you shechted it when you weren't supposed to, not only should the korban Pesach be burnt right away, it should also you should have to bring a chayiv korban chatas. Ella, right, the fourth or fifth attempt at a teretz. Ella Turgam Rav Yosef Breder Rav Salah Chasida Kamid Rav Papa. Hamani Yosef ben Chunai. This is going on to Yosef ben Chunai. The Tanan Yosef ben Chunai Aimer Hanishchatim l'shem Pesach l'shem Chatas psulim. If you shecht something for a Pesach and for a shem Chatas, then it's pasul. Alma psulim begufahi. So you see that it's a psul in the guf. Umshum hachi yisar miyad, and that's why you're burning it immediately. So it's again we're talking about a case where it's shechted l'shem Pesach and l'shem Chatas, right? And then there's puzzle. So then the Gemara says,
what? Yeah. I'm sorry. What does burn it immediately mean?
Right when you realize that you made a mistake,
we're not talking.
You just take it to the basis straight.
We're not talking Shabbos.
Not on the mizbeach.
No, but not you're not burning.
No, it's weekday. This is during this is during the week. This is during the week.
Okay, fine.
But 1 second. So then, what was the kasha? 1 second. So what was the kasha before Rabbi Eliezer? We said Rabbi Eliezer before this talking about Shabbos. I think the cases are interchangeable. Ba'atzim we're dealing with during the week, right? That's a good point what you're saying. But theoretically, if it happened on Shabbos, you wouldn't burn it right away. You'd wait till later. But the bottom line is, according to Rabbi Eliezer, you should be chayav another korban. Yeah. Yeah. So that's again. So again, the Tanan Yosef ben Chinaya Emir Han Shchita L'Shem Pesach first white line L'Shem Chatas Psulim. It's puzzle. I'm a psula beguva. You see, it's a psul in the guf. Mishumhachi yisar miyad, and therefore you burn it right away with pature, right? But why you? He's pature, so then he should be chayav. Meaning, if it's Shabbos, he should be chayav according to Rabbi Eliezer, because he shechted an animal shaloi kedin on Erev Pesach on Shabbos. So he said pature savar like Rabbi Yeshua. No, he holds like Rabbi Yeshua, right? That if you do it on Shabbos, you are potter since you were being Isaac in a mitzvah, right? So therefore, it's not a steer. Rav Ashi Amar Rav, he has another teretz. Rav Ashi says in the name of Rav Damar Rav K'Rabbi Yishmael b'noish Rabbi Yochanan b'Meraika. The Tana Rabbi Yishmael b'noish Rabbi Yochanan b'Meraika. Aimer im yesh shahos b'yayim. If there was enough time in the day, Leida im mashchu ba'alam esideim oishemesu oishenitmu chayav. Meaning, if theoretically there was enough time left in the day that before this guy shechted the animal, he should have done his due diligence, right? He should have put out some feelers. I mean, he was right before Shkia. Okay, so he didn't have time to check it out. They said, Shech this korban pesach of people. He didn't have time to check it out. Okay, so he's on this. But if it was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and he had a few hours, he should have said, 1 second, who are these people? Are they in? Are they not? So he should have known. So then he's going to be chayiv. And you have to let it wait till the tzura changes. And then it goes out to Beis HaSreifa. My timer. What's the reason? Akira. Is it not because, meaning why do you have to wait till it's uba tzurasa? It's not because you need an akira. Right? So you see that's why, right? That it's so therefore you see that it needs an akira. I'm sorry, you don't need an akira. So then the Gemara says, who says it's because of akira, or that it doesn't need an akira? Maybe it's like Rabbi Baravua said, maybe it goes like his shchita who holds a pigel, which is then no bigger pigel than that, no bigger isser than pigel, right? Pigel is when the kayin shechting it or doing the zrika is having in mind that he's going to do something possible about the korban. The yolaf avon minaisa, because he learns it out from naisa, right? So maybe he holds like that. Because if you don't say that, nitmu bailim ma'ikala meimar. If the owners became tummy of the korban pesach, what are you going to say? Akira, right? That you definitely need an akira, meaning the bailim became tummy. So now you need an akira. Damar avchia bar gamda nizur kamipi chavura going to show you bailim to me mace when it will pesach sheni. Talking about where that it was the bailim were tummy mace and they get pushed off the pesach sheni. So the Gemara answers, Ella, so that teretz doesn't work. Ella machvartik the shani meikara Yosef ben Chunai. So we're going to go change back that it's Yosef ben Chunai who holds, right, that it has to, if anything that's not shelter the korban pesach, right, then it's possible. But he holds like Rabbi Shua that they're not going to be chayav v'chatas. Okay, this Amud Beis was not an easy thing, but Hadron Malach Elu Dvarim. And then the next couple of blocks get at least much easier and more practical than these last blocks.
It's a funny thing that the Gemara.
Yeah, what are you saying?
It's a funny thing the Gemara Mamash goes to an Amud of Gemara trying to find for who Rav holds like and how he works. The Gemara always has the fallback of Rav Tano Palik. The Gemara is trying to find a Tana or how to much a Rav to figure out to fit the Mishnah or to have a Tana that he holds like in his din, but like he's a Tano Polig. Why don't the Gemara just fall back to that?
That Rav is a Tano Polig?
Right, the Gemara in the end just says he holds like Rabbi Yosef ben Chanoi, that Tana. We're going to have to find a Tana that he held up in order to make this work out. But Maisa, the Gemara always, the many times, answers Rav Tana Polik and just, okay, fine. He's chaylik on this.
I know, but are we really bringing any... what are you saying?
No, go ahead. No.
I don't. Is there anything that's a stira from a Mishnah or a Brisa here?
It's not a stira. The Gemara at the end finds a Tana that he could hold like. That's what the Gemara does at the end. Right? The Gemara at the end of the day doesn't work it out with his Mishnah. But once you're going that route, you can just say Rav Tanu Palik. It's one thing if you want to make him work with the Mishnah. But the Gemara in the end doesn't do that.
I don't think it's about which Tana. Right. The Gemara wants to find out.
I don't say it's about which
Tana.
No. So the Gemara knows. Why can't he just say because
Rav Tanu Palik doesn't answer that. He just
of course it does. Lay by
Akira. What it is.
Yeah, lay by Akira. That's the pshat. What does that mean? We knew that Svar before. We just couldn't find. We were trying to find somebody he could hold like regarding that.
What do you mean? We want to know if you're forced to say lay by Akira.
You're saying we don't want to say Rav holds lay by Akira? Is there a steer in Ravs that we can't say that?
No, but we want to know what he holds. The Gemara's not just about to say, okay, Rav holds lay by Akira. Maybe he holds Akira. We want to know what he holds.
But
how do we know what he holds?
Okay, fine. But then let me ask you a question. Why did the Gemara have to come on and hold that he holds like this Rabbi Yosef ben Chanai? That's also putting him into a corner. He holds that way either.
Either way, he's in a corner. It has to be
right.
As far as
right.
Holds,
so why say he holds like that corner? Why they don't ride either way?
You'd rather say Rav Tanu Palik than say that there's a Tana that holds like this?
There's no Tana that holds lay by Akira?
I don't know. It's interesting that you're saying that because no Tana seems to have say beferish Akira or no Akira, which it's always back.
Right, but it's not something that's like clear cut that everyone holds one way when it comes to by Akira, lay by Akira. It seems a little. I'm saying the Svar of Yosef ben Chanai seems also very, very miyuchadik. Not something that most Tanaim hold like. It's not psul in the guf. Even if psul in the guf, you don't burn right away.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's.
I feel like
there's no.
Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, there's nobody that says it beferish, oik or not, right? There's no Tana that says it beferish.
Right, even yesterday you didn't have. Yeah. That was the Shaila yesterday in Tanoim. What did the Tanoim hold? Akira B'tos, Avi Akira. The whole Gemara was about that. We don't have a Tana that holds straight out.
Right. So I don't know. It's interesting. Why you would think with this such a basic machlokes, there would be a beferish machlokes with this, right?
I don't know.
I don't know how basic.
The Gemara seems to be going so far out of the way to make sure he might not hold that way. That he shouldn't hold that way.
Right.
I don't know. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, Tano Palik, Dana. What are you saying?
It could be because if you hold Bali Akira, you come on to a whole bunch of new machlokes. What kind of Akira? Does it need to be bepeh, belayed, how long? All of the other machlokes that we have and changing things, you come on to all of that, and it's the whole syllable now. Hold Bali Akira, it's easier.
Right.
Fine.
Okay. All right, Akiva. I think also, I don't think it's a Ravatano Palik. Did he leave already, Akiva?
No, I'm still here.
It's like only in the last resort that they say that, no?
Right. So my question on that was just that, like, it seems like we're getting backed into a corner here when the Gemara comes out that he holds like Rabbi Yosef ben Chanai. And my point is that why back yourself into the corner one way when you could back yourself into the corner a different way? That he holds Allah by akira. That's all I was asking. Like either way, the shchita of Rabbi Yosef ben Chanai is not something that is accepted. It seems like according to most people. Most people hold that psul guf you should be burning. So the shchita that we're coming out with, the Rav holds like, is also very much, I wouldn't say a yachid, but it's definitely not the accepted psak, according to most Tanaim.
Right.
So I just don't know why we had to end up like that when you could have just said Rav Tana Ubali.
Yeah, I hear you. I wish I understood this Gemara well enough to.
Well, I have to go over the Gemara. I'm just asking out what we come out with. I have to go back through the Shabbos thing.
Yeah. All right. Fine. Let me know if you come with it.
No, probably
good to know. What do you want to say, Gershon?
Is there a Rashi on Chumash somewhere that says, I don't know, I think somewhere where the Torah says, Ela HaTorahs v'achukim v'amishpatim. Rashi asks why mishpatim are called mishpatim because they're logical, and Rashi says it's not because they're logical. That's why the Torah has to say them. Nothing to do with something like that.
Sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't know.
Something about Geneva. There's loopholes in Geneva. Sometimes Geneva is not Geneva. I was just thinking.
What are you saying?
You had two inyanim on Amud Aleph that are mashma like that. The whole yira ad sheyistoiv. We have the whole sugi of tzar belechayim, if it's deraisa, when it's deraisa, and yet yira ad sheyistoiv. Let it get it's a balmum. You're dealing with a sheep with a broken leg. Yira ad sheyistoiv. It seems cruel, but that's the din. The halacha says that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. And
I don't know.
The case of the Gemara where he shechted chatos the Shabbos bachutz la'avodah zarah. Yeah, that the word bachutz. I mean, logically, I would have said that it's far worse to shecht something la'avodah zarah inside the Beis Hamikdash than outside. Yeah, the Torah Lamaisa says bachutz is an extra lav. It's worse.
I hear. But
the Torah has nothing to do with logic. The Torah is what the Torah says is. That's it.
I hear. All right, my niece just got stuck outside, so I'm going to go out there and try and help.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, fine.
Yeah,
all right, Peretz, I didn't see no l'chaim for you, Peretz.
What do you mean? I made it already. I'll make another one. I'll T-Dog.
It's okay. It's all right. Get the angry, get the stuck now. What?